and Truth livecast here on this amazing Friday, a Memorial Day weekend. And I am here with my friend and co-host. It's Friday. And my co-host, Jeffrey Smith. Dr. Jeff, how are you today?
I'm well, Jim. Thanks for asking. Hope you are also.
Doing well, doing well. Glad everybody's here. We are very excited today. Going to be a great topic, carrying on as we talked about on Wednesday, from this idea of creating a consciousness of wellness. So we dove into that pretty extensively, and we brought a special guest in today to bring in some, as I was telling her earlier, for me, it was kind of bringing in some of that divine feminine energy into this conversation of wellness, because it's integral to the experience. And Deb and I have a history going back a couple years. We met each other in a group called What Vibes Your Tribe, and thank you to Danielle for that. She's an amazing gal, and amazing stuff we got to learn. At that time, it was a challenge to make 1-minute videos for 30 straight days of content to get us to expose ourselves to people, and to get us out in the world. And it was pretty extraordinary. So that's where Deb and I originally met, among a handful of other people. And so we invited Deb on because of where she comes from about wellness, and particularly from the mom aspect, from all the things that she's also doing. I'm going to take a second here to give you a little info about Deborah. I'm sorry, Deb, I didn't memorize this. So Deb is, as it says there, Deb's a Kiwi mom and wife who's chosen to stop dreaming her ideal future life and start living life on her terms right now. Along with her husband, they've sold their house and possessions, bought a yacht, and are living on it, learning to sail and navigate with a view to sailing around the world in a few years' time. She believes everyone should have a freedom gig that brings in a leveraged income that builds with time and consistent effort, and loves helping people achieve this for themselves. She also has a community on Facebook called Wake Up Warriors, where she holds space for people to have conversations that matter about topics that concern them, and has reignited the group recently with the COVID situation to provide people with an alternative view of what's happening. So that was part of the reason for bringing her energy here. I think it's going to be a great input. Hi, Deb. Great to have you.
Thank you for inviting me, Jim.
Absolutely. So we're going to have a great conversation here today. Sorry, we already got people saying hi.
Yeah.
Whoops. This is one of those things we still have to work out these details. All right, we're diving into creating a consciousness of wellness, and here we go. So let's talk for a second here. Jeff, I don't know if you want to pick this, because you actually initiated this conversation that started this pyramid idea, which was that we started with, we're in this idea of switching from, or shifting from, an illness-based model, which is sort of what we live in, to this wellness-based model. And we're going to get into this in a little more depth, but we created this pyramid to talk about looking at it from the perspective of how we spend our time, and that in the amount of time that we spend in various activities, how those activities, when transformed, can transform the next level and the next level and the next level, to create a really powerful change and shift in a person's experience in a way that's organic and natural, as opposed to the willpower way, as opposed to the fight and make it happen way. So how that looks is, just as a kind of a brief thing here, is say you want to go, you're thinking you need to shift your body. You know, your body doesn't feel good. Maybe you're feeling a little overweight. Maybe you're feeling sluggish. So the way we're trained is to fight through it, to put yourself on a diet and make it happen, and lose the weight and work out and do all those things. And we never give time to stop and find out, like, why is our body feeling this way? What are we doing? What are the behaviors that we've been? What are the beliefs that we have that create that situation? And then diving into that experience so that informs the choices. And I have found in my own personal experiences that's a very profound way to approach any problem, because when I dial into my own experience, then the change becomes an organic change instead of a forced change. So I'm not adding resistance to the idea of wellness. I'm adding allowing to the idea of wellness. And we can talk about that more, and I don't want to dominate this, so breathe, which is where we're going to start anyway. So I did ask you, Jeff, I'm sorry I went on a bit there, but do you want to kind of encapsulate that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so where the overall concept comes from, of becoming a master or an expert at something, in this case wellness, requires the due diligence of time, effort, and commitment to the mastery of whatever it is you're trying to master. There was a time in my life where I was on a board of directors for a group called Better Men, and I wrote a syllabus of how, as a group, we could become better men in the way we were defining all of that. And it involved daily, weekly, monthly practice and application and accountability, and getting together as a group to bring all of these changes we were trying to make into manifested reality. And I recall that the leader, the president of the organization, thought it would be sufficient to meet once a month and kind of like have a men's breakfast or a couple of hours, and think that a 2-hour breakfast once a month was going to create a better man. And it was like, you've got to be kidding. I mean, how is that possible? So I ended up leaving that organization because it would be really just a whitewash facade, checkbox sort of a thing.
Mhm.
And then I reflect back to my boot camp days, where going to Marine Corps boot camp, when you were issued a rifle, you had it with you all the time. You marched with it, you slept with it. It became a part of you, such that you could disassemble it and reassemble it blindfolded in the dark. You knew every little piece to it, so that if you ever were in a position where it was dark, it happens in combat, and your weapon misfired or malfunctioned, you could take it apart, put it back together again without a flashlight, without an instruction manual. But that required literally 3 months of daily hands-on application to achieve something like that.
Mm.
So kind of using what worked, and I'm not suggesting people go buy guns and sleep with them, take them apart and everything. It's just a model, so give me a break here if anybody's,
Good example.
me because I did that once upon a time. It's a model, and it was a very powerful model that if you really want to master something, you really do have to spend time with whatever it is to get there. There really are no shortcuts. So the concept that Jim and I started with on Wednesday was, if you're going to achieve wellness, then we have to look at it in terms of, what are we always doing? Breath is something that we are always doing, that by making subtle changes in how you go about the consciousness of breath, you can at some point push that down into a subconscious, and then you learn it. It's like a muscle memory. Just like once upon a time, everybody that knows how to tie shoes, once upon a time, had to go very slowly and learn left over right, pull, tug, get it tight, then making a bow and wrapping it around and pushing it through and pulling that tight. Well, you don't have to think about tying your shoes any longer. As a matter of fact, most people, you don't even have to look. You just tie your shoes. And that becomes something that was conscious, that then gets pushed into the subconscious, unconscious applications, so that we don't have to attend to those more minute tasks. And breath is one of those things that most people do not think about their breath, and as a result aren't breathing properly. We are never really taught how to breathe. We are not taught how to sleep. We are not taught how to eat. We're not taught how to pray. We're not taught how to meditate. The list is quite lengthy. And these are things, I mean, everybody breathes all day long. Most people sleep about a third of their entire life. But hardly anybody prepares themselves for sleep. Hardly anybody actually makes a sleep chamber and looks at it as a sacred process that's happening every night. We're thinking all of the time. That's another thing that we got to put into that pyramid, Jim, is that whether people are aware of their thought process or not, it's something that we are always doing. And most people are not willing to be accountable to what it is that you're actually thinking. We go on autopilot, and we let the media tell us what to think. We let our shows tell us what to think. We let our parents tell us what to think, or our friends, or our lovers, or our enemies, or whatever. So the idea is that as we look at these vast amounts of time that we're spending doing something, if we could ask ourselves, are we doing this correctly? Are we doing this to maximize the efficiencies of it? Are we doing this to get the most out of it? Or are we just like cruising on through, and we think that the 1 hour a week of yoga that we do, or 1 hour a week of church that we go to, somehow is going to make us a better person? And it's just like, no, you will never get there that way. And you won't get there from a diet pill. You won't get there. I mean, it's got to be a daily, hourly, moment by moment practice of all of it. It has to be all of it. And then you might have a chance of becoming an ascended master like Jesus. Jesus said we could do greater things than he, but the only way you're ever going to get anywhere close to that is if you're literally living it moment by moment by moment.
Awesome.
You know, when I was listening to your last podcast, when you introduced the pyramid, thinking that came up for me immediately. When you said breathing, I was like, oh, of course, breathing, absolutely. And I'm not conscious about it enough, and I need to be more aware. And from that point onwards, for the rest of the podcast, I was in through the nose and out through the mouth, and I was being very conscious about my breathing. I was driving as well. But then I was thinking, oh, what's next? What's next? It's got to be thinking. It's got to be thinking, because we're thinking 10,000 more thoughts a day, and it's all completely unconscious. It's all just along there. We've got really no control about it. And what we need to start doing is becoming aware, especially aware of the thoughts that kick in that are not positive and are not going to nourish us and our minds and our bodies and our souls, right? So it's that little voice that says, oh, you idiot, why did you do that? It's that little voice that says, oh, that's constantly pushing yourself down, and we all have it. They're the first thoughts I feel we need to pick up on first and be aware of and turn that around, and it takes some rewiring, right?
Yes, definitely does. And that's and great feedback. And while we will look at the model, it's amazing to me the time spent focusing that at no juncture between Wednesday and today did thinking come into the equation. Just absolutely blows my mind in a really good way. But it's just like, how funny is this? But even more funny about it to me is as I was thinking about this pyramid and this process, and I was thinking about the ideas of what is it to be conscious? What is this thing called transformation? What is it to be more conscious? And it's this idea similar to the pyramid, that most of it is about learning what is unconscious in our experience. Bringing those things that are unconscious to the conscious is how we become more conscious. It's not something outside. It's not a book. It's not a TV show. It's not a reality show. It's not a guru. It is bringing what is in us from the subconscious to the conscious in whatever fashion we do that. And hopefully here at Adventures in Truth, what we attempt to do is to provide those tools and to give you the foundation for understanding what that's about, so that you can begin to reflect on that in your own experience and begin to bring up to the conscious level those things that need change, need shift, need growth. And to Deb's point, the important part of that is being willing to be unconditional with self, so that you can look at any of it without any reaction or fight or resistance. You can just notice it and go, ooh, maybe it doesn't feel good, but you can just go, ooh, I don't like doing that. How can I change it? That's the
bridging the gap between soul and ego.
Yes. Yes.
Because I feel like ego gets a bad rap. To be called egocentric, it's like, you're basically saying to someone you're very selfish or very self-important. But ego is what gets us through life. It's what keeps us alive. It has kept us alive to date. And I really feel like today's lifestyle is still constantly pushing those buttons that the ego has to react to. It has to react to this fight or flight, because there's stresses everywhere we look. There's still dangers, and just the amount of the population of the planet that are under stress all the time is quite horrific to me. And that's keeping that ego at play all the time, right? But if we can bridge that gap between soul and ego. It's our innate self that gives us those very quiet messages, those instinctual messages that are a very silent, very quiet voice, but they are bang on every time. You know, how many times do you experience that? You know, like you're thinking about someone, and then 1 minute later they call you, and you think, "Wow, what a coincidence! I was just thinking about you." But no, that was absolutely your soul doing what it does so amazingly. And if we could bridge that gap between, you know, this very human part of ourselves and this very non-human part of ourselves, think about how much more powerful we can be.
Into that. Into that. So cultivating this idea of wellness, this new paradigm that we're positing here. Again, this is a work in progress, but I wanted to share it because it's fun and it's a cool thing. And obviously, what we know is that we have we're missing one. So we need to add our thought in there. But we won't spend a ton of time on all of this at this point. I think I want to go through it and talk about it, but lump it into, I wanted to kind of create categories with it so that it can be broken down into minutia. But I think the idea here is that if you take the biggest part of the thing that we do is breathing. So if we focus on breathing and we focus our energy on managing our breath, using our breath, understanding the process of breath and why it's so important. I think we referenced last time that this is prana, this is chi, this is the vital energy that you bring into your body through breath. That's what it is. It's what it does, and as well as nourishing the organs and the tissues with oxygen and all of those things, bringing vibrant health into the body, keeping it in balance. So that first layer, focusing your transformation, focusing your energy, as we've talked about these things over time. We realize that there's, as Jeff was saying, it's an everyday thing. You gotta build this practice. You gotta build this time to constantly come back to self. And when I say self, I mean capital S self. To come back to that centered place, that soul place, where you're using breath that expands you. And when you do, that lays a foundation. That foundation then impacts the next level, which in this case is mind, and still holds true. When you are able to manage the breath, you're much better able to manage the mind. Because when you manage the breath, you're controlling the energy, and not in a sense of controlling the energy, but I'm going to change the word to managing your energy. So using breath to manage your energy creates tremendous change and immediately begins to influence the mind, because it doesn't need to be as noisy or as crazy, because to Deb's point, the ego isn't in frantic mode trying to keep you alive and on the planet. It's settled down a little bit because there isn't that immediacy of that experience. Is everybody on the same page there? Any thoughts about that?
I think we're on the same page, Jim.
All right.
Yeah.
So breathing, mind, sleeping as they roll up and go into working. Now we're getting into more activity. So working can include all kinds of things. That can include your hobbies. That can include your work, your career, all those, whether you're a mom or a dad, whether you have pets, all of that can kind of fall into that category. So again, if the breathing is off, the mind is crazy. If the mind is crazy, the sleeping isn't happening. If the sleeping isn't happening, we're not effective in our work. And when we're not effective in our work, we begin to consume, and consuming is spelled wrong, and I didn't get that fixed. Thank you, Deb. I just so the work, so the work gets affected. Then that becomes a place where we consume more. So then the drinking happens, or the drugs happen, or the food happens, or the sex happens, or the whatever happens, to try to make all of those below periods feel better. Well, maybe if I can get laid, I'll feel better. At least I'll sleep tonight, because at least I can just crash afterwards and I don't have to think for a few minutes. Next step, moving on after the consuming, is the connecting, and then self-care, and then transforming. And I think that it would be good to kind of spend a little time on that top part of that pyramid in a different segment, unless you all have some other thoughts about that, just because it's a lot. It's a lot of information to take in and a lot of detail to kind of flesh out. But what do you guys think about that thought process? And then of course it goes in reverse. Once you start managing the breath, sleeping gets better. Once you sleep more, You have energy and focus. Out of that energy and focus, you can work more clearly. You can manage your time better. And then you begin to make conscious choices about how you consume. I was referencing this earlier with change process that happened for me 4 years ago around not eating meat. It occurred as a natural part of my own consciousness process because every day I was doing my daily practice and every day I was focused in that. And out of that came these transformative moments that each level of this pyramid started to change and grow. And I was able to then make a shift that I didn't make from a place of, I have to do this now because my body needs it. It was my body told me it's time. My body said, yeah, no more meat. Let's move on. And it was a non-event and has continued to be a non-event since then. And that's the whole point, I think, of this idea of wellness, is that the wellness aspect is once you get that piece down, once you understand it's about wellness, it builds on itself. It grows on itself just as much as illness does. And I'm going to. Do
you think that that for many people there's this real disconnect in terms of respect for our physical bodies?
Heck yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, exactly. Heck yeah. You know, you grow up as a child, you think you're bulletproof, right? And my body can do anything I like. And you push boundaries, you push limits, you injure yourself, you heal well, you know. And as you grow up, I mean, I know for me, when I was in my 20s, I was taking every substance nearly under the sun. No, I wasn't really. But I smoked a lot. You know, I smoked, I drank, I tried things. And you just think your body's bulletproof, and it's only until you start to get into the later stages of life where you start, you know, realizing I've really abused it. I really took it for granted. I really don't, and I'm not in tune with it at all. Like, how many people are really completely disconnected from their bodies? And when you're not connected with your bodies and you're not picking up those subtle clues or those effortless things that you just described, Jim, about how when you're reading and understanding your body says one day, I don't feel like eating that, or that meat doesn't taste right, or the texture doesn't want to go near my mouth for some reason. Okay, and you don't even think twice about it. Like, it takes a certain amount of work, this breathing, this sleeping, this caring, being consciously consuming, to build that connection back with your bodies, so that you can then receive those signals and receive those messages from your body. Because I think so many of us, and myself included, I'm still learning these things, you know. All through this lockdown period, I've been thinking to myself, again, negative thoughts saying, oh, you really should be using this opportunity to meditate more and form a habit, you know. A lot of us put pressure on ourselves. Wow, we've got all this time in lockdown with nothing to do. I should be forming new habits, starting new projects, doing, putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. But I, for one, still can't seem to get into a great habit or routine of just simply breathing twice a day like you do. So, yeah, it does one thing at a time. I think we need to be really easier on ourselves and more respectful to ourselves in the process, that it's one thing at a time. And to master one, like, I don't know, drinking water every day is a great thing. Celebrate that, you know, and move on to the next thing. But the longer we stay disconnected from our bodies, the more disempowered we're going to be. And the more we're going to look at handing over that power, or looking to experts, looking to things external to us, to help us with any illnesses or dis-ease that our bodies do experience. And that, to me, it feels like a dangerous thing, especially now, right? We have an entire world in a state of fear because they're so disconnected from their bodies and what their bodies and their immune systems are able to actually support them in. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that. Yeah.
Over time, the automobile industry has worked very hard to create a product that we can open the door, get in, put a seatbelt on, turn the ignition, drive to where we want to go, and not have to pay attention to really much about the vehicle at all. If you went back only 20 to 30 years ago, you'd periodically have to check the oil and be aware of the tire pressure and what the brake status is. And you really had to be a lot more involved with driving years ago. And it's like little by little by little, with the advent of artificial intelligence, it's like the humans are being given the liberty of being wherever they want to be in their mind without really having to pay attention to the physical things around them. And I'm using that as a metaphor because our bodies are really the same way. We don't pay attention to our bodies any longer. If we went back to the bottom of the pyramid, an example of how we really don't pay attention to something that's actually very, very important, which is that sleep column, which is, all the way down near the bottom of the pyramid. Most people will watch TV and something disturbing on TV, because if you're really honest, maybe not the people listening to this show, which I hope is the case, but most people on the planet are watching some kind of show that's going to have some violence in it, some kind of lying, betrayal, deception, cheating, financial mismanagement, shooting, hospitals. And there's just carnage. It's just human wreckage. Seems to be very entertaining to the mass media, and people watch this all the way up to the time where they're nodding off, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. They turn the television off, and then they crawl into bed, and their subconscious, unconscious mind is literally have just been traumatized. I mean that word literally, traumatized. Like, oh my gosh, that's the world I live in? Because it's the subconscious, unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. It's only the conscious mind, the very small 2 to 5%, that says, I was watching a TV show. Those are actors. They're not really real. So the other part of our mind, by the way, which is the only part of the mind that's on when you're sleeping, because conscious mind goes offline. Now you divest all of that to the subconscious, unconscious mind, which just spent 4 hours watching crap, and it's going to be tossing and turning and having all kinds of bizarre, strange dreams, because that's the world that it lives in. And that's one area that, if people were really, really willing to watch the Gaia channel instead of Netflix, okay, if you still want to be entertained, just switch what you're watching. As an example, and I want to say that in a non-judgmental way, but you have to be at peace. If you want peaceful, restful sleep, you have to start that way.
Yes.
You have to. And people don't. And so what I'm talking about is taking 20 to 30 minutes. That may sound like an astronomical lot of time to prepare yourself for what you're going to be doing for the next 8 hours. Yeah. It's an investment. It's a pre-investment to maximize the potential gains of this big chunk of time that you're going to be spending to allow your body to heal, for all the stages of sleep that you go through, to have the best dreams, to let your spirit guides actually interact with you, that you could get guidance and inspiration and downloads, and you're not processing all of the crap that you just watched that your mind is scared of. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up, because this probably sounds more like a lecture. But
no, it's actually, Jeff, it's really a great perspective, because the other thing that you didn't say out loud is, if you fall asleep while that's going on, you've just opened the door to your consciousness to all that crap that is just flowing freely into you without any obstruction, without any blockage. It goes in wholesale.
Yeah.
And it's so important as we're talking about this, and the cool thing about this conversation is we're seeing the layers of this. And there's a part of it, and I can hear people kind of going, "Oh my God, what do you mean I got to pay attention to this and 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 this?" And I'm not gonna. But think about this for a second. If it's all about energy, and it is all about energy, people, it's all about energy. So if we are energetic beings, and this is about energy, and you're laying in bed allowing whatever crap to flood your consciousness while you go unconscious, and wonder why you feel like crap when you wake up the next day, there's your answer. But I don't want to, like to Jeff's point, I don't want to berate about it, but what I want to say about it is every little step is important. When this process happened, I'm one of the weirdos that said, this is an incredible opportunity. I'm going to use every second I can. I'm being exaggerating. I didn't say every second. But what it did allow me to do was to create the space that Jeff's talking about. I do my daily practice every day. Now I do it twice a day. I do one in the morning and I do one in the evening. But I always do the one in the evening, and I don't always do the one in the morning, because the one in the evening, I have not slept a bad night ever in this process. I don't go to sleep worrying about it. I don't go to sleep thinking about it. I don't go to sleep sweating over it. I just go to sleep.
Can you share with us your process?
Sure. I go through actually two levels of process. So the first part of the process is in through the nose, out through the mouth with the breathing. That's consistent and constant. The first thing I do is I start with breath, and I stand with my feet together and my arms at my side, and I begin to breathe all the way full breath, inhale, and all the way exhale, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And while I'm doing that, I'm feeling the breath move through my body, and I'm breathing and allowing my body to begin to move with the breath. So I'm by myself. I'm in a dark room. You know, I don't care what I look like. I want my body and my energy to be liberated in this. Because the other thing to understand, guys, is that it's all about energy. Because it's all about energy, we spend all day in fields of energy that we have no concept of how it's impacting us. And I'm not talking, I mean, there's people, there's cars, there's pollution, there's television, there's radio, there's cop cars, there's waves, there's, I mean, it's just amazing to me the numbers of levels of stuff we get impacted with energetically every single day. This process is meant to cleanse your field. That's what you taking responsibility for this, for keeping this on the planet in a conscious way. So anyway, so there I am. I'm standing, my hands at my side, my breath, and I'm beginning to undulate. I'm activating my spine. I'm using my body motion to have my spine activate. That's where Kundalini comes from, guys. It's energy traveling up the spine, Ida Pingala, swoop, shoop, shoop. If those muscles are contracted or locked or spasming, whatever, the energy doesn't flow. The energy doesn't flow well. That's what begins the process of disease. So once that process, then as my body begins to loosen up, I focus the breath. Then I go from just breathing and opening up the body to then deliberate stretching. So I begin, as I'm doing the breath, I focus my breath into the back of my back, so that I'm expanding the back of my heart space. So I breathe once or twice, full breaths, opening up the back of my back and stretching those muscles up along there, and then releasing them and letting the chest open up. And then after I do those, I begin, I do stretches to open up the sides of my body. So I reach straight up into the air as I'm inhaling, and I let my body lean to the right and stretching out the right side, but not like you're used to where you go, oh, okay, I'm stretched, oh, I'm stretched. This is a deliberate experience of consciously moving the breath through the body, coming to that place of the absolute furthest you can reach up into the sky, and then letting your body go to the right side and feeling that stretch from your pinky all the way down your leg. You'll feel it through the entire body, and just let it go with your exhale. And then do the other side. I do those 2 times per side. After I do that, then I breathe one more time, and I take a full breath, fill my lungs, and I bend over to the floor and let my back open up, let my hips open up, and let that go, and then do the counter of that, which is to inhale from the floor straight up into the air, and then bending over backwards so that the spine gets worked from both directions. This takes literally 7 minutes. So
sounds beautiful.
It's a fabulous process. So once that's completed, then I go into an actual breath exercise. So then I all this entire time, my feet have been together. I've not stepped apart from my feet at all. After I finish the bending over and the stretching, then I separate my feet wider than shoulder length apart. So a nice, healthy, grounded stance. And I breathe a few more times in that stance, really opening up the hips. Let the hips roll, let the hips move. And then I begin a focused breath process of stimulating at the base of the spine and at the occipital point in the brain. That stimulates the flow of the Sushumna up and down the spine. So that's the energy that cleans all that energy. So I start with my finger, I touch the base of my tailbone, and I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. And then I go up to my head, breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. And then I go down to the bottom, and I build that rhythm, and I keep going until, like now I've been doing it for so long now, I can do that for 5 minutes without even thinking about it. Like, it doesn't cause hyperventilation. It just causes major, crazy good expansion. So wow. After that, then I breathe 2 breaths between that, and then I go to the heart space. So then the same thing, 2 fingers on the center of the breast. Then you open that breath, inhale and release, and inhale and release, and inhale and release in through the nose, out through the mouth. And again, build the rhythm. The important thing about understanding with breath is that you have to allow the breath through the body to work through the channels. The universe does not work in force and resistance. It does not. You have to allow for the energy as you direct it to move through you. And that's part of the dance. That's why the movement. It gets you out of your head. It gets you out of your stuff. And then, so once this is done, then I'm in my zone. I've altered my state. I'm ready for the next thing. So that sets me into, at nighttime, then I go into the meditation. So I go and I sit in my space and I breathe. I put on nonverbal music, usually like 400, something that's somewhere between, depending on how it feels. Sometimes like a 432 hertz, or sometimes I'll do the higher ones, like a 900 hertz, it depends. But something that just allows me to keep breathing, and I'm using that music while I'm doing the breath. When I sit, I have 3 stages of that. So that part took approximately maybe 10 to 12 minutes. The second phase is when I sit into meditation. It's 3 parts. The first part is, and this, by the way, this process changes fairly regularly, because as my energy changes, I incorporate new things and lose old things that no longer feel like they're serving the process. So when I go to sit to do the meditation, I do it in 3 stages. The first stage, I do deep, if you're familiar with pranic breathing, which is that breath where you bring the breath up over your, I don't know how to describe it. I'll have to get a definition for it, but it's where you hear the breath in the back of your head, and you feel it exploding in your body when you do it. And I do I work on what is called a declaration. This is a statement that I created in a meditation that is just me basically creating new grooves in my brain. I just spend 5 or 10 minutes just repeating this process. I'll tell you what it is. It's pretty straightforward. I am the evolution of God. I inform and guide that expression as the pure expression of God. I show up as God, I connect as God, and I align as God. I am creation realized. And from that, I create, expand, and engage. I am. And I repeat that. And I say it, I feel it, I be with it, and then I do it again. And sometimes I check out in the middle, and I just bring my awareness back and continue on until it feels complete. Second stage is a stage of that lasts for 5 minutes. Then I do appreciation. Full on, I just go into a place of appreciation. I just talk about it out loud. I appreciate that I get the chance to sit here and do this. I appreciate that my day has been fantastic. I appreciate that I got to have this amazing interchange with 2 amazing people that I really appreciate. I appreciate that I get to, that I have this amazingly healthy body that is filled with vibrant good health. And then I go about that. And I stay with it until it feels like I've used the energy. And then the last piece of it is called the Mata Bhavna. And that is a meditation that is about sharing loving kindness with self and with the world. So it is a stage, you can look that one up. That one, there's actually YouTube videos about the Mata Bhavna that are really extraordinary. But it's making a statement, focusing on self, focusing on a significant other, focusing on someone you don't know too well, focusing on someone who you have a hard time with, and then focusing on the world at large. And you say 3 statements. The statements are, may you be well, may you be happy, and may you be free from suffering. And so I use that for however long that takes to get through all that, depending on who I'm focusing on and how many I'm focusing on. And then I shift the music one more time into Om. And then I sit in the Om space for 2 minutes, and then I finish. So it all takes, at nighttime, I take a full hour because I want to. I take a full hour because I want to. But it's not, you can take any piece of that. But particularly the breath and the stretching, that 7 to 10 minutes will change everything, because that's all I did for years. And then I started to build onto that as more things felt more comfortable, and I wanted to achieve different things as I was understanding my own energy and my own process. So I didn't realize
that's fantastic.
But there you go. So anyway, that actually dovetails for us into about creating this amazing wellness environment. What I described for you, and thank you for asking about that. is the start of creating is well, it's more than a start because I've been working at the wellness thing for a while, so I'm a little more attentive to detail. But again, it's start where you are. Start where you are with what you have. That's where you begin. And I've dominated this a while, so please feel free to jump in. So what do you guys think? How do you begin to create a wellness environment? Any thoughts on that? In your own lives, in your own personal experience? How do you create that for yourselves?
Go ahead, Deb.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I feel really, I'm sitting here listening to you. I ask genuinely because I really want to know, and I like to hear other people's techniques. I still seriously struggle with it. I still feel like I'm trapped in busy bum mode, busy mum running a business, got all these other things going on that I still don't make enough conscious time for myself, for my self-care, that it's become habitual. So certainly one of the things I do try to do every day is get out to walk. I love to be in nature. I love to connect in nature. I love to be by the water. And I like to get out and walk my dog. But again, a big part of that is because, the dog needs a walk. It's not about me. It's like the dog needs it. So, and I don't know, but I've as a woman, a lot of women suffer from this. And I guess that's something that I wanted to share and put out there, is that a lot of women are constantly looking after everybody else and everything else. There's always stuff to be picking up, tidying up. There's always stuff to be organizing. There's always stuff to be collected, picked up. We keep so incredibly busy with life, and we do wear a lot of hats. And I'm not saying that's necessarily any more than men, but it is something that I hear a lot. I do connect with a lot of women, and it's the same old buzzword that they're just not making that amount of time for themselves. So look, I'm looking for anything that I can squeeze into and it feels like I'm squeezing self-care into my day. And that's very disempowering. It makes you feel kind of helpless or hopeless sometimes. I have discovered in the past things that haven't quite become a habit but have been fantastic have been in the mornings for me. But getting up early in the morning and doing something for me is very much reliant on how late I stayed up the night before. And if I was staying up late the night before finishing something, then I'm going to be already starting on a back foot for the following day. So I do like I liked hearing about your nighttime routine there, because I think that's got a couple of benefits too. It's allowing you to decompress from the day, look at all the, and be appreciative of all those great things that happen for you during the day, plus setting yourself up, building all those new pathways, strengthening those super highways, I suppose, in your brain of the way you want to be thinking and feeling on a more permanent basis and more subconsciously, and also setting yourself up for sleep. So that's pretty powerful. But I can see why you would want to do something in the morning as well to set you up for the day. But yeah, from my perspective, I still really struggle with this.
And I think that, go ahead, Jeff.
What's that?
Were you going to jump in?
I'm just listening, enjoying what you guys are suggesting.
This would be a really good place here to chat about that for a minute, as far as how can we encourage people to just make the choice, to make the decision? Because really, that's what it is. When you boil it down, it's a decision. And somehow we have all been trained into thinking that if we make a decision about ourselves over others, we're not okay. We're bad people. We're not good parents. We're not good people. We're selfish. We're all of these things. And that's pardon me, but that's a tired conversation. Because it's not legitimate. It's not real. It's fabrication that we all do. I'm not directing this at anybody. I do it. I was having a conversation with a friend this morning about, I read an email from my editor and made a whole story up that had nothing to do with, it had something to do with what she said, but I made it up. And I had to make a decision in that moment that this is crazy. Stop doing that. Go do something else. And then come back to it and look at it differently. And I did, But
Yeah.
I want to be clear. I don't spend my life doing nothing. I don't have lots of. I have time right now, obviously, because we all have some time. But it is a choice. It's a decision to say, okay, I'm going to start here. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe only 5 minutes is what I can do right now. But I have it set up with Michael. I when I'm ready to go, I say, off to do my thing. Catch you later. And so the house and the dog and everything else is his problem until I come out. And he's wonderfully supportive about that. But that's all part of building the environment and building that wellness environment, that everybody in the environment is important. So how do we balance it out so that we all get what we need? Because if you're not getting what you need, you are not providing. Anybody. I don't mean you singularly.
You got to put on your own life mask first, right? Your own oxygen mask first before you can put it on your child or anyone else next to you. Yeah, I think something that's coming through to me right now is that it has a lot to do with integrity. We'd all like to think that we have people of integrity with others, that we mean what we say and we keep our word, but how many of us don't have integrity with ourselves? And that to me, that stabs me in the heart. That feels to me like something that would be enough to get me going and commit to myself, because I have integrity, and integrity for myself first and foremost. If I say to myself, I want to start a meditation, regular daily meditation, then keep my word to myself. If my word is not good for me, it's not going to be good for anybody else, is it?
Yeah. And can I add to that just real quickly? Understand, everybody, that the process of building this doesn't mean you're not going to have resistance in yourself. You've built up habits over a long time. And I still, half an hour before I'm getting ready to go meditate, my mind will start, you don't feel like it today. Yeah. You did it yesterday. You're good. Yeah, we'll go for a walk. You'll feel good. Yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And I mean, and that diatribe will just kind of lightly in the background, but it builds intensity without my attention. It's building an intensity that's saying, you don't need to do that. It's okay. You're tired. You want to go to sleep. Don't even worry about it. You got to get up. You got to do. It's there all the time. Not every minute, but it's there regularly enough that it's just a choice. Because it's real easy. It would be very easy to just listen to that little ego voice and go, oh, okay, you're right. I don't have to do this. But what I know is how.
I was just going to say, Jackie, who is live right now, she just commented that her husband supports her and helps hold her accountable by saying, go have your time now. So that could be another nice thing to do, is if you do have, someone significant in your life to remind you to make that time for you. Sometimes we need that reminder.
Good stuff. So how about you, Dr. Jeff? What do you do to create your wellness environment, or what things do you try to do to stimulate that for you?
Well, I have to start with more of a concept of what is it that I really want, and to truly be honest about what is it that I really want to experience. Because anything that you want to either have, possess, it's going to create some kind of an experience. And for example, I work with some college kids that tell me, I really don't want to do my homework. I really don't want to do the work. And I'm like, well, yeah, you actually do, but you don't have it put together in your mind correctly. Because you really do want, you're in college to get a degree. You do want the degree, and you want the degree so that will help you get a job in a particular study or discipline that you're interested in, or just to make mom and dad happy. I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of reasons why you're going down this pathway. But in the moment that you're telling yourself you don't want to do your homework and you'd rather eat a bowl of ice cream or veg on YouTube or all of the other distractions or all of the other experiences that you could have, you can make those choices too. But if you consistently make those more immediate, gratifying choices, you really won't get what you ultimately want. And that's where, for me, the resistance comes in, is moment by moment by moment, are you really doing what you want to do that's going to lead you to the bigger issue and experience that you really want? Do you want to be well? If you want to be well when you're 70, you can't start at 69. If you really want to be able to ride a bike and climb a rock when you're 70, 75, 80 years old, you have to be on that path today. If you really want to know who God is, if you really want to know how the universe was created and what your part is in it, that isn't something that you can wait to start to do a decade from now. It literally is a practice, because that's a big want. That's a huge want.
It's a lifetime want.
It is a lifetime want, which would take a lifetime effort to achieve that. But my goodness, it would be worth the effort. That would be an effort worth participating in. But along the way, each moment by moment by moment, we have to say no. That's the ultimate thing right there. We have to be able to say no to the things that are going to delay or even prevent or block what it is that we really want. So for me to start this whole talk and conversation about creating a wellness environment, I would like to add maybe lifestyle in place of environment. Environment is helpful to have the lifestyle, but it's really something that you're going to be living throughout your whole life, because you want to be awake. You want to be aware. You want to be connected. You want to be operating in the energy of love. And then, because then you now know what you want, it makes it so much easier to be able to say no to the things that are going to hold you back from that, delay you from that, distract you from that, or even flat out prevent you from that. So step one for me is absolutely knowing what I want. Big picture. Got to put that big picture out there. And one of my mentors is constantly reminding me, every step we take is either taking you closer to or farther away from what you really want. And just to be mindful, to bring that into consciousness, that every breath I take, every step I take, every choice I make in what I'm doing with my time and energy is either taking me closer to or farther away from what I truly want. So you have to start with, yeah, what do you really want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I like what you say there about it being creating a wellness lifestyle. I like that, because once it is a lifestyle, that becomes your wellness environment. You are your wellness environment, right? By living that lifestyle.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to say, the same thing. The whole point of environment is that that's what you carry with you. Mm-hmm. So your environment is with you wherever you go. Your environment could be exchanged for your field, for your, for your energy, for whatever. But yeah, so I mean, I love that we're all saying the same thing, and we're conveying it in just minute shades, because it's important. Because there, just like there are 3 different one of us, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet having their own perspective. So it's awesome that we can talk about this from many different perspectives and come to the same resolution, which is love that.
Fantastic.
So, one of the things that you have talked about, Deb, that we want to dive into for a couple minutes here and really give you a chance to talk about your experience with creating wellness and parenting. You started to talk about that a little bit as a mom, as a woman, as a person on this planet that has all of the same things we all want and desire. What do I want to ask here?
I don't know if we should even start this topic 2 minutes ago.
It's going to get a little deep.
That's asking too much from me. You'll just have to get me back.
All right. Well, we can do that. And
I can't believe. Yeah, I can't believe how this one we obviously had to cover breathing again. That was massive, and you obviously hadn't touched on that enough in the first one, and talking about the lifestyle secondly. So yeah, maybe another time.
So that's all good, and I'm good with that, because as you said, as soon as it was, the feeling of it was, that's a very big bite to chew on right now.
But I guess if I want to answer it super quickly, I guess it's back to what we learn, right? What we learn in life. And as a mother, I immediately learned, as soon as that baby came into the world, it's like, oh, I'm completely responsible for what I'm putting in him, the thoughts that I'm feeding him, the environment surrounding him, and teaching him the skills to get through life. And one of the big things I find myself still constantly trying to educate with him with is to be able to go within. And I think that is the one most powerful thing that we can teach our children, is to be able to look within and trust within, listen to those voices, learn how to breathe, all of that stuff. I mean, my 5 year, he's nearly 6. He'll get so angry that I have to literally tell him how to breathe and do it with him and take him through breathing processes. I mean, these are the building blocks that, yeah, as a parent, it's all the stuff that we've just talked about. It's so important to teach. Yeah, early on.
It sparked a thought for me too of how cool it could be, you know, as a way of generating a foundation of wellness. What if you breathe together? What if you what if you make it fun and you spend 10 minutes together learning how to meditate? Because you don't have to do anything other than find quietness, you know, find stillness. But those are ways, because what struck me was that you had said, your comment was the thing that your son struggles with is the thing that you struggle with. So why not bring it together? You know, and as an alternate possibility. So,
absolutely, and learn together. Yeah.
But there's always options, and it always looks like it's more overwhelming. But again, I think that's about when you're looking at anything from the perspective. We've spent so much time putting everything on the outside. So to me, it's like when you're looking at something, you're looking through the field of all of your crap, trying to see what's on the outside of all of your crap. Well, guess what? You're going to see all your crap first, and that's going to overwhelm you. And then if you even get to see what's beyond your crap, you might get lucky. So the whole point of breath and wellness and meditation is to clear the crap out of the space so you can see over there, so you can see much further, and you can find solutions and opportunities that are available to you, but we've become so shut down to our wellness that we're not availing ourselves.
Or they find you. Those ideas and opportunities flow to you because you create yourself as a vessel for receiving them. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, guys, once again, an hour has blown by like crazy. That's just crazy. What an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful to you guys for being here and participating in this crazy show. As we, you know, really peel back the layers. I hope as the listeners that you gained a lot of valuable insight into how we do this. We are going to continue this conversation because it's important. And as we evolve this pyramid more thoroughly, we'll definitely talk to Deb and bring her back to dive more into this, because I think it's a very powerful topic. Anybody, anything before we close? Jeff, Deb, anything, guys?
Thank you. No, Jackie said thanks. Great show. No, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I love how these thought storming type things take you in directions that you don't quite see. That's great.
Yeah. Just went completely where I wasn't anticipating, even with the structure.
Yeah. But it was perfect.
It was. Thank you to everybody out there in livecast and podcast land who is participating with us. We love having you be part of the show. We love having you listen. Please reach out to us. Send us your thoughts and ideas. Send us your questions. Join us on our Facebook page when we do the live so you can interact with us. We really love what we're doing. We love being able to take these adventures and do these deep dives into these powerful topics that create these foundations for transformation. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Deb, for coming from New Zealand. Thank you, Jeff, from California. Thank you, Jim, from Colorado.
Thank you.
Have an amazing weekend, guys. Happy Memorial Day.
All right. So long, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.